Hello, welcome to the Debian.NET team BoF. We only just started building an agenda 5 minutes ago, so it's a little bit rough, but if there's anything you want to talk about, please add it. I think we'll start with some introductions of what the project is and who's part of it, and yeah, we can go from there. So the Debian.NET team is a small team. There's basically 3 of us. We need to edit out the OpenStack bits because that never happened. Who can make it easier for people to host services for Debian? That basically means we buy VMs on commercial hosting platforms that Debian pays for. And it makes it very quick and easy to get a service up, but you are responsible for looking after it, not DSA.
Yeah, in short, there's lots of services that Debianites want to host for Debian, but DSA is not interested in hosting it because it's not a core Debian service, which is how far their scope extends to. And in the past, it was a nightmare having to do individual payments for different people hosting things at different providers for the services they want to run on Debian.NET. So we got together and got accounts via Debian Switzerland and sometimes another TO to get accounts at all the hosting providers so that we can easily assign VMs to people who need it without complicated admin or payment complications.
We don't think that it's healthy for the project that Debian project members have to host things related to Debian on their own infrastructure. It's probably better that it lives somewhere common, that there can be a bus factor greater than 1, and when things break, there are people who have admin access to get in and unbreak them.
Yeah.
So the name can be a little bit confusing because there's also the Debian.NET domain where unofficial services live, and that domain is something that any Debian project member can add records to pointing anywhere.
Yeah, I guess if we were less ambiguous, we would be the Debian.NET hosting team.
Yes. So at the moment, we have a number of machines. There we go, those ones that are running. Some of them are in use. Some of them, I think, have never been used by anybody.
I added to the agenda to a census, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once a year we should start pinging all the hosted services at Debian.NET and ask people, are you on the latest release of Debian? Do you need help upgrading? Do you have backups for your service? Do you need help with setting up backups? Because we get 500 gigabytes of free backup space with rsync.net per DD, so either a instance manager could be responsible for the backups, or maybe we could also have an additional backup space that they could use. But that's stuff we can carry in the census, I think, once we start doing something like that. Also, we are looking for help, by the way. If someone wants to help with stuff like this, which is mostly just admin work, because me and Stefano, we are always constantly overloaded. This is literally the first time we get to speak about Debian.NET, even though we do work on it in like the last, what's it now, 2 years?
Yeah.
So we're very busy and we can do have some help. So if you're interested in helping, even if you're watching remotely or this video recorded later on, either get in touch with us or add your name to the pad. We can always do with more help.
So I think especially we could use help with like common infrastructure things, building out. I would like to have some monitoring across the Debian.NET stuff. I think we should be able to provide backups that like get set up with the configuration management system, and if you opt into backups, your instance is backed up. Things like that we should be able to do, but somebody needs to write the code to do it. And yeah, if anyone's interested in that, we need it.
Did Kuthiran, did you just say you're volunteering? Were you interested? Great.
Automating backups, monitoring. I can't think what else. There's all sorts of things we probably need. What else do we want to talk about here? Budget, how do you feel we're doing budget-wise?
I think because I'm DPL, we just tell Debian Switzerland we need more we need more fund allocation. So that's easy right now. I was wondering that past my DPL team, we should probably, or we should maybe ask the question: should we set this up as a delegation? Because if the delegation can set up a budget, and it might not even be necessary. It's just a question that was in the back of my mind. Maybe we should explore that after my DPL team is done.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. So you're currently happy that we're well within the budget and we should be spending more money on more VMs?
We can. If people need more VMs, we can do so. They're at least cheap.
They're pretty cheap.
If they don't get used, they're easy to cancel. So it feels like the risk is low there.
Any questions? Anything? Yes, Jonathan.
I've one or two suggestions, and when you responded to those, a question. You talked about backups, but these being VMs owned by service owners. I have, for work reasons, I have recently deployed Proxmox as a VM hosting, and Proxmox's backup server, which plugs into it, and will do an external snapshot-based frozen file system block level backup from outside the VM. So your service owner has to do nothing at all from the inside to make things happen. I know DO have their own thing that does a sort of similar thing. If you aren't managing the VMs yourselves, make the service owner not have to do anything and not have to fix anything later.
That's kind of an interesting idea, especially maybe using something like Proxmox or Kubernetes or whatever, and give DDs perhaps the ability to create their own instances on this host that has automated block level backups and snapshots and all of that. We'd have to have another dedicated machine or cluster for that. At some point, Zigo wanted to set up an OpenStack cluster, which would have been great, but we needed so much resources. We had a few providers who were interested in sponsoring us, but every time people on the other side got busy and it just didn't work out. But maybe at some point we get to the scale where it makes sense to just get, a few big servers and set up something exactly like that.
I think we probably already at the scale where we could afford, if we replaced all of the current VMs with one server, we'd be saving money.
Yeah.
But that would be one.
Yeah.
That would make creating the next few VMs free, but then at some point we'd want a second one to do some live replication backups or something.
So you perhaps take baby steps and at least snapshot the VMs onto the same machine, so if someone cocks it up, you've got a rollback, even if that doesn't give you an external backup.
So at the moment our VMs and containers run on ZFS, and they get snapshot and then sent all the way back to my garage in South Africa. So
You're thinking of Debian Social.
I am thinking of Debian Social. I get confused.
Debian.net currently runs all of its
That's
VMs on Hetzner Cloud, which has a built-in backup option for an extra €1 a month or something.
Oh yeah, maybe we should
And nobody has
consider that.
requested that.
Yeah.
So when you want to create a Debian.net machine, you go to requests. That seems like the right place. You create an issue. New issue. We've got some issues we should be looking at. And we ask you some things like, how are you going to do backups? And generally the answer is not really needed, or I'll do it myself. For most people it was not really needed because it's something, the machine doesn't have any non-ephemeral data. Yeah.
It's probably not something right to solve now, but it's some ideas and some
Yes.
input to be thinking about as you start scaling out. My question is whether you have considered compliance matters and where the responsibility for those lie, where the Debian.net domain and some external hosting is, it's fairly clear that almost all responsibility for compliance lies with the service owner. In your setup, where does that demarcation lie? Have you defined it? Do all the service owners understand what their responsibilities are, and who inherits them if the service owner vanishes?
So at least minimally, we require at the moment that people be a DD before they can request that. So at least we know that they've signed the code of conduct, and we also ask them to agree to the Debian machine usage policies, even though we're not DSA. So they have an agreement, they have some minimal agreement of what they should do, at least from an abuse and legal perspective on these machines. In terms of the service responsibility, we have no clear demarcation there.
We say you're fully responsible for your instances.
Okay, yeah. I don't think we have anywhere what happens if they disappear, but at least we have a copy of the VM, so if someone wants it to continue, there is some path for someone to take over it. Maybe at some point we could have some project almost like orphaning a package. You could orphan, let's say you have forums.debian.net and you don't care about it, maybe you could orphan it and other people could formally take it up, and if no one does, then we say, well, no one's maintaining the service, it has security issues, we need to shut it down now.
So we don't have an orphan process, but we did define a salvage process, which has never been used. Yeah.
What about data that might fall under particular legislative regimes, and subject access and protection of that data and protection of the backups of that data, which might, for example, be going to a garage in South Africa?
That is something I'm wondering about too.
I don't think we currently have any data that falls under that, although
Okay.
maybe the press team's VM might be different there. Yeah, compliance, data responsibility.
On the plus side, when it comes to GDPR and POPIA and all of these country or region-specific laws, the open source projects tend to be quite good these days, at least the big ones, in implementing these features, so that if a user wants to download all their data or delete all their data, that is possible. But yeah, we haven't really looked at what happens with backups, and I'm not even completely sure what our responsibilities are in terms of deleting their data in the backups if they request that the data get deleted. I mean, eventually the snapshots will get old and get purged for disk space purposes, but we could maybe be a little bit more clear on that on our site, on how that's handled. Otherwise, if you have some advice, we'd be very happy to listen to it if you want to come help us sometime and look over things and give us some guidance.
Yeah, I get the feeling that we should have more information in the instance census about whether something contains PII. I can't spell today. And who the responsible person is, and yeah.
Possibly more good reasons to have a delegation for this as well.
Yeah. Is there anything else you're thinking of? Should we require the instances to display something on their websites that refers to
I suspect that's probably overkill. I think the minimum you probably need to do is make sure that instance owners understand their responsibilities, understand whether or not they're holding PII, because that can include data which can be aggregated with other data to form PII, and make sure that users understand how to get in touch with the right people to exercise their rights. Beyond that, I think this is probably somewhere to engage with the data protection team and make sure that everybody is on the same page as about all of it.
Yeah. Besides on this topic, I mean, I don't think we are doing a great job in the official Debian services. So, like enforcing extra rules on DebianNet feels, I don't know. We can do it, but don't overload the maintainers. Besides, also email addresses are considered PII. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's probably every service is holding PII of some sort.
And as soon as you have as soon as you have something identifiable like email addresses, IP addresses start becoming PII.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So your logs gets complicated. And this is where it helps to have some common configuration management that we can say web server logs but redact IPs or something. Yeah. Again, probably overkill.
yeah, but one question I have is the Esner account, or at least the owner of that account, is some kind of association, like like is it somebody or is it like something?
Debian Switzerland.
Is it in the name of Debian Switzerland? So effectively, the legal responsibility of everything first of all falls on Debian Switzerland before, like, okay.
Yeah, they own the accounts with the hosting providers. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just afraid that somebody was taking it.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of wondering, so we are paying for Ethernet for these services.
Yeah.
Was this a particular choice instead of like looking for sponsors, like some hosting provider willing to sponsor the services rather than just paying for it?
We had some big plans before. If you look at our wiki page, we have a section for the OpenStack team. Zigo wanted to...
Oh, yeah, they wanted to do it inside the SA, and then there was like clashes.
The SA at some point, and we had first one sponsor was very enthusiastic about helping us. They wanted to sponsor a whole rack full of servers and infrastructure. We had... This is a very big hosting provider, and it got all the way to the CEO wanting to support us. But then they had a big fire in the data center, and after that, everything just kind of fizzled out, and the people we talked to doesn't work there anymore, and it's a big mess. So that's kind of faulted, but I actually forgot your question. But if I think
why we are paying instead of like looking for our
sponsors,
sponsoring
yeah.
hosting?
That is something we'd like to fix long term. Get more hosting instances, and maybe Etzner themselves have been open to helping Debian. We got, I'm not even sure if I don't think they'd object if I say this, but they basically sponsored us a backup server that DSA is using at the moment with lots of disks. So they're open to it. We just haven't formally talked to them to ask them for, we're still at low amounts, so it's not yet a big issue, but it would be nice to get more sponsors, and at some point after my DPL term, I want to get involved with the Debian partners team that Laura is currently running, but it's kind of been stalled for a while, so she needs some help there. And the idea is that we have sponsors that sponsor Debian a certain amount annually, and then part of it could go for hosting, part of it could go for DebConf, and so on. So once that happens, then maybe it can fit in with that as well. So yeah, it's something we want to do, just haven't had time yet.
I would say this started as a stopgap measure because commercial hosting was something we could turn on day one while we sorted out other options. And
I remember that.
yeah, and that's never really been pursued because it's been fine. But yeah.
Also because we can afford it, of course. But
Yeah. Was there still something on the agenda we missed?
No, we've covered everything on the agenda.
I thought this was going to be a 20-minute slot, so I was a little bit surprised to see it's 45. But if there's more questions or comments, we have the time for it.
came inside late, so I may have missed a bit. The growing team part, so you're looking for people to write code for backups and write code for
We're looking for people to write code
standardization?
for all of the infra jobs. So if you look at the process for requesting an instance right now, You create a ticket using a template. And if you look at the end of the template, there's a very manual series of steps that one of the admins follows to set up your machine. This could be replaced by a small shell script or a configuration management tool. But we've got 10 instances, or some maybe 20, something in that low range. It just hasn't been an issue yet. There's lots of admin work to do.
Right.
The way I kind of see this going is we could provide 2 levels of VMs. We could provide a purely unmanaged thing for someone who has weird needs, or we could provide something that's semi-managed that your SSH key will get updated from Debian LDAP. You can have backups if you want. You can be in our monitoring, all of that stuff, and use our configuration management if we had it.
So basically, replace DSA for DebianNet, you're kind of saying.
Yeah, or a minimal DSA.
Yeah.
So I reached out to DSA when we were first talking about this, asking if there would be any way that we could share common infrastructure, like run some of their Puppet stuff on our VMs, maybe share mail infrastructure. The conversation fizzled, but I can see a path there as well, and then services can migrate to DSA at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, this started off in, what was in 2017, I wanted to host a PeerTube instance for Debian because, we have all our videos all on these non-free platforms everywhere, and I thought it would be nice if we could host our videos in a place where it's just not a plain Apache directory listing, but we actually get nice browsable and searchable videos. And I talked to DSA over and over, and the idea was they would like to help, but this is just outside their scope of things that they work on. They do core Debian services, not random. I don't want random services that DDs want to run. And then I had to figure out how are we actually going to host this? And then once I became DPL, I got requests for hosting stuff all over the place, like almost on a monthly basis. And some of the places where people wanted to host stuff was just so expensive, and I thought we really need some more central coordination for this. So this is where this came about. Yeah.
Since you're mentioning this, are you also working on collecting the services back into the team? Like all the hosting that you approved as a DPL, did you think of reaching out to them? And
I haven't had the time to think about that yet, but it's a good idea to do so.
Because the salvaging part and that thing is actually very important, because we have had quite a few events in Debian where service owner disappeared, and that got messy, like DDTP thing, like the translation, the Debian description translation project, whatever it was. Yeah, that was very messy, for example.
Oh,
with
wow.
because it was a Debian.net domain, and the maintainer went MIA, and the DSA team didn't want to override the DNS record until the developer was actually still a developer.
Oh yeah.
So there was so even if the team set it up a new instance, they couldn't get the domain name, and this was total.
Yeah, for actual useful stuff, I would very much like it if we have it hosted somewhere where we can access files if needed. If it's just like for a game at DebConf or a quiz or something silly, I don't really care where it's hosted. But if it's like, for example, okay, this is a small one, but paste.debian.net is so widely used, people rely on using it often, and paste.
Oh, paste.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of these that's used widely enough that we don't want it to just disappear or go away. But
I think we host paste now.
It could be.
Which does involve PII, definitely. Yes, we host paste. Hmm? Oh yeah. Yeah. Or at least we started hosting. The thing about a lot of these is somebody files a ticket to request the VM, we spin up the VM, and then we never hear anything more from them. Like, have they even logged in successfully?
We could add that to the census. When last did someone
So I've been meaning to just SSH into them all and see when they were last logged into. Yeah. see if I can see any web hosts configured or anything.
Yeah, if we have nice monitoring, then we can partially do the census via the monitoring.
Anyway, I just added a line here, which is, if you know of any services that are currently being hosted by somebody privately or separately, please request they bring them onto the team. We'd like to have them.
Yeah, it's not mandatory, but it's nice.
If they would like hosting that is not bus factor 1, we can provide it.
Yeah. And at least Debian properly pays for it as well, which is nice.
Yeah. We have a question from the sound desk.
So there is a question in the IRC.
Okay.
Are DSA worried about sharing infrastructure being a security problem, or are they just too busy? Because the first wouldn't apply to sharing code for admin if it's used in different servers.
I would say the security profile of these machines is a lot. We don't have the infrastructure in place to even make sure that SSH keys are updated when people change their keys in LDAP. Currently, the responsibility falls fully on the person maintaining the service. I'd like to do a better job than that, but at the moment, each service is going to have a different security profile. If the admins do a good job at sysadmining, then it's great. If they don't, then it's not great.
The answer to your question is probably yes, both of them. Manpower is notoriously short for DSA not because there's not so many people, but just because of the sheer amount of stuff that they take care of already. So yeah, I think it's probably a combination of factors.
Is that it? So we do a last round of call for comments before we wrap up?
You asked earlier about pulling other things into Debian.net. One thing we did pull in is the stream mirrors used for DebConf live streams. Those now happen under Debian.net. Just because one less account for Debian Switzerland to pay, it makes things simpler.
Also, one thing that we didn't quite cover that's not mentioned quite on our documentation, I think, either, if you want a physical machine, you can still request this via the usual DPL process. And if you want the physical machine for Debian.net, you can, or for Debian.net service, you can request a service like that as well.
How many things like that do we have?
A handful, I think. We have the debug infod server, which is quite big. We have one for Debian Social that we'll cover next. And there's a few others too.
Does it make sense to try and pull those in at some point?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
If we did that, that'd probably mean consolidation of hosting providers, or
not necessarily, because you might have a physical server at different hosting provider depending on needs.
right.
Maybe one service provider does 10 gigabit that we need, or that fast storage, or who knows.
Yeah. Should we call it?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you, everyone. There's a much bigger audience when we ended than when we started. This is great.
Cool. Thanks a lot.